Welcome back to your carbon monoxide training. I am Garth Haslam. The effects of carbon monoxide, and this is something that you do want to keep in the back of your brain. You know, one of the discussions I have, for example, with my wife is she tells me, "Why didn't you listen?" The guys don't tend to store everything, and I'm very much guilty of being a guy. My response is, well, I heard it, but I didn't store it. So please store this, because this particular part is important. Health effects of carbon monoxide are going to be headaches, it's going to be fatigue, it's going to be dizziness or drowsiness or nausea, and yeah, one of the health effects associated with carbon monoxide can actually be death. Now, to illustrate that, I have a couple of stories. One would be that, you know, back in the 80s, I used to have this hatchback car. It was the old Datsun, and of course, at the time, I didn't have a truck, and I don't even remember why I was trying to put the lawnmower in this Datsun, but I was trying to take that thing somewhere. Maybe I'd sold it. But anyway, you can get a lawnmower most of the way into a hatchback, and then you've got to make do. So I did kind of a redneck sort of a tie down on the hatchback, and down the road I went with my family in tow. Time we got there, everybody was coughing, they had the headache, they had a little bit of nausea, and they didn't recover for a few days. And I had realized that what had happened was as I was going down the freeway, the carbon monoxide from the exhaust pipe was circling back in underneath that hatch and getting into the car. And so if it's that easy, and if it causes that much of a health effect, you know what it could do if, you know, and that was, I want to say that was circulated with good air. And so if you've got a carbon monoxide source in, or a CO source in the house where you don't have circulated air that comes with it, things can get much worse. I did an inspection in a girls' apartment, co-eds, university near my home, and those girls, they lived in this very small apartment. I'm going to say it was probably 600 to 800 square feet, and there were 4 girls that shared that apartment. So it was basically a very small living room with a very small kitchen and 2 very small bedrooms. And that was pretty much it. I guess they had a bathroom. Girls have to have the bathroom. So you can imagine this very compact living space. And as part of that, they had to have a water heater. And so, of course, that water heater is not going to get a lot of free space. And so they stuck it in this little closet, about a 2x2 closet, right behind the front door. And of course, they had a solid door to that, except for the gap down below. So I got in there and I saw that we had this water heater and it didn't have any combustion air, and we'll talk about the combustion air in a couple more segments. But I saw that air was trying to leave, but there was no replacement air. So I'm thinking carbon monoxide, and I started to ask these girls if they had symptoms like headache and nausea, and they says, yeah, we're always good outside, and then we come home and we just feel these headaches. And I had to tell them that they were experiencing carbon monoxide poisoning, and if it got worse, they could die. And I think that got their attention. I got some phone calls asking some questions about that. It's out there, it can happen. Doesn't grab the headlines, but it is very much a, I don't want to call it a silent killer, but it kind of is. Carbon monoxide is heavier than air, which means that it's going to settle on the lowest part of the ground first, and then the concentration is going to be worse down there, and then it's going to raise. And so what that might tell you is the kids, the little kids, the toddlers, the rugrats, they're going to be affected the most first, and then it's going to get to the rest of us. And by the time, you know, if you're expecting that your carbon monoxide meter on the ceiling is going to be protecting you, by the time it goes off, and depending on the circumstances, you might already have a big problem. So be aware of that. Now, it affects the lungs. So carbon monoxide, being a part of the air in your house, is going to go in through your nose into the lungs, and there it's going to be distributed through the body from the lungs. It's going to get into your bloodstream, it's going to go throughout, it's going to go into your brain and cause the headaches and nausea, etc. So that's how it gets in, as opposed to maybe being eaten or through the skin or whatever. This is one that gets in through the lungs. Here's another one of the stories I have. This is of a family where the kids were all complaining about headache, nausea, etc. And so mom and dad said, okay, you know, you don't have to go to school today, you guys stay home, you can sleep, you can do whatever, which was the wrong answer in this case, by the way. And so mom and dad went to work and they came home and the kids were all still headache, nausea, vomiting, etc. So, and then thankfully at this point none of the kids had died, but they certainly weren't feeling good. So they went in, the parents took the kids in, and by the time the kids got to the doctor's office, they felt good, every one of them. That 10-minute dose of good air had cleared them up. So they stayed at the doctor's office and they asked the doctor what was going on. Of course, he figured it out very quickly. He told them they had carbon monoxide inside their home. And you know, I wasn't close enough to that story that I could find out whether it was the flu or the fireplace or whatever, but you know, scary stuff.